There's a ceremony that took place on May 28, 2026, in the heart of America that Rome cannot easily ignore. 12 young men lay prostrate on the floor of a cathedral while the litany of the saints echoed through the sanctuary. An archbishop approached them one by one. He imposed his hands in silence. He recited the ancient prayers of priestly ordination. He used the Roman Pontifical of 1962, the very liturgical book that the Vatican's own restrictions had attempted to remove from ordinary ecclesiastical life. The ceremony was public. The photographs were public. The seminary announcements were public. Nothing was hidden. And that may be the most important detail of all. Because if someone intends to challenge a policy quietly, they do it behind closed doors. If someone intends to make a statement, they do it in a cathedral. By the end of this video, you'll understand why the ordination of 12 priests on May 28th may be one of the most significant liturgical events in the United States since Traditionis Custodes, and why many traditional Catholics believe it reveals far more about the future of Leo XIV's pontificate than any Vatican press release. Let's begin with the facts. On May 28, 2026, Archbishop Thomas Winsky presided over the priestly ordinations of 12 seminarians of the priestly Fraternity of St. Peter. The location was the Cathedral of St. Cecilia in Omaha, Nebraska. The rite used was the traditional Roman Pontifical of 1962. The same liturgical book used before the reforms that followed the Second Vatican Council. The same book used by generations of Catholic bishops for centuries. The same book whose use was effectively restricted under the legal framework established after Traditionis Custodes. 12 new priests, 1 traditional ordination ceremony, 1 American archbishop. One increasingly uncomfortable question. Why did this happen? To understand why the event matters, we must understand who Archbishop Winsky is. Thomas Winsky is not an outsider. He is not a fringe bishop. He is not associated with traditionalist activism. He is not a public critic of Rome. He is the Archbishop of Miami. He has served for decades. He was appointed Archbishop by Benedict XVI. He has worked extensively among immigrant communities. He speaks multiple languages. He has consistently been viewed as a reliable member of the American hierarchy. In other words, he is precisely the kind of bishop whom Vatican officials traditionally trust, which is what makes his actions so difficult to dismiss. Had the ceremony been performed by a bishop already associated with traditionalist causes, many would simply interpret it as resistance. But Winsky is different. His decision therefore carries a different weight, because it suggests something broader, something deeper, something increasingly visible throughout the Church. The growing realization that the traditional liturgy is not disappearing. Let's remember what happened in 2021. Traditionis Custodes was issued with a very clear objective. The document declared that the liturgical books promulgated after the Second Vatican Council constituted the unique expression of the Roman Rite. Restrictions followed. Permissions became more difficult. Traditional communities faced uncertainty. The message appeared straightforward. The future belonged to the Reformed liturgy. The older form would gradually diminish. Many Vatican observers assumed the matter was settled. 5 years later, reality appears more complicated. Traditional communities continue to grow. Traditional seminaries continue to attract vocations. Young families continue to seek traditional parishes. Pilgrimages continue expanding. New priests continue being ordained. And now 12 more have joined their ranks. This is the paradox that nobody expected. The more the traditional movement was restricted, the more visible it became. The more obstacles appeared, the more questions emerged. Why are young Catholics increasingly attracted to something they never personally experienced? Why are seminarians voluntarily embracing forms that modern culture considers outdated? Why are communities centered on ancient liturgy often producing larger families, stronger sacramental practice, and more religious vocations? These questions have never received a fully satisfactory answer, and every new ordination makes them harder to avoid. The priestly Fraternity of St. Peter occupies a unique position within this story. Founded in 1988, immediately after the crisis surrounding Archbishop Marcel Lefebvre, the fraternity chose a different path. It preserved the traditional liturgy while remaining fully within the canonical structures of the Church. Its priests pray for the Pope. Its priests serve dioceses. Its priests remain in communion with Rome. For decades, the FSSP represented a model of coexistence: traditional worship, canonical regularity, ecclesiastical obedience. Everything seemed stable. Then, Traditionis Custodes arrived, and suddenly questions emerged that many believed had already been resolved. Could the traditional liturgy continue? Would Rome honor previous guarantees? What would happen to communities built entirely around the older forms? These concerns intensified in 2022 when Francis met personally with leaders of the fraternity. The meeting produced reassurances. The FSSP received confirmation of its ability to continue using the liturgical books of 1962. Many traditional Catholics interpreted this as an important sign. Yet the canonical questions never completely disappeared. Because the fraternity itself possesses no bishops, its seminarians require bishops from outside the institute, and those bishops must navigate a legal framework filled with ambiguities. This is where Archbishop Winsky's action becomes particularly significant. He did not merely attend a traditional ceremony, he performed it. He imposed hands, he pronounced the prayers, he used the traditional pontifical, and he did so publicly. No secrecy, no hesitation, no apology. What we see is only the surface, because beneath the ceremony lies a larger reality. A reality measured not in documents but in vocations. Every institution reveals its future through the people willing to dedicate their lives to it. Universities reveal their future through students. Religious orders reveal their future through novices. Seminaries reveal their future through candidates for priesthood. And on May 28th, 12 young men stood before the Church and declared their willingness to spend their lives serving Christ through the traditional priesthood. That fact matters. It matters because vocations cannot be manufactured. Marketing campaigns do not create priests. Administrative plans do not create priests. Committees do not create priests. A vocation emerges from conviction, from sacrifice, from belief. And 12 men believed strongly enough to dedicate everything. The real story begins here. For years, critics argued that traditional Catholicism represented nostalgia, a temporary reaction, a movement attached to memories of the past. But the average age of many traditional seminarians tells a different story. These are not elderly Catholics recreating their youth. Many were born decades after the liturgical reforms. Many never experienced the Church of the 1950s. Many discovered tradition precisely because they were searching for something modern religious culture seemed unable to provide. Transcendence, mystery, sacrifice, continuity, the sense that worship concerns God before it concerns ourselves. This explains why every traditional ordination attracts attention far beyond the number of men involved. 12 priests is not merely 12 priests, it is 12 future pastors, 12 future confessors, 12 future celebrants of the Mass, 12 future teachers of doctrine, 12 future influences on thousands of souls. And each ordination represents a future that continues expanding. That is why the question now facing Leo XIV becomes increasingly difficult. Will he enforce the restrictive logic inherited from Traditionis Custodes, or will he recognize that the traditional movement has become too deeply rooted to eliminate through administrative measures? Nobody yet knows the answer. His public statements have remained limited. His actions remain carefully measured. His position remains largely undefined. but silence itself becomes significant when events continue unfolding. Because while Rome remains cautious, reality continues moving. Seminaries continue functioning, families continue arriving, pilgrimages continue growing, and priests continue being ordained. The Church has seen similar moments before. Throughout history, laws have often attempted to direct spiritual realities. Sometimes they succeeded, sometimes they did not. The ultimate test has always been life itself. Communities that no longer inspire sacrifice eventually disappear. Communities that continue generating sacrifice continue growing. The 12 men ordained in Omaha represent sacrifice. Years of formation, years of study, years of discipline, years of preparation. No one chooses that path casually, which is why May 28th may ultimately be remembered as something much larger than a single ordination ceremony. It may be remembered as evidence that the traditional movement entered a new phase, a phase in which restrictions remain on paper while vocations continue appearing in reality. And history suggests that reality eventually becomes impossible to ignore. What do you think? If you liked the video, comment Amen. God bless you. What makes this story even more significant is that the ordinations in Omaha did not happen in isolation. They occurred during a month in which the traditional movement appeared stronger, more organized, and more confident than at any point since the publication of Traditionis Custodes. While 12 priests were being ordained in Nebraska, tens of thousands of pilgrims were walking toward Chartres in France. While traditional seminaries continued receiving applications, discussions surrounding the SSPX episcopal consecrations intensified across the Catholic world. While Rome remained largely silent, bishops, priests, and faithful continued making decisions as if tradition had a future. And that is precisely why many observers believe the real significance of May 28th goes far beyond 12 individual ordinations. Because every institution eventually reveals its priorities through the things it chooses to preserve. The Church preserves what it believes is valuable. The Church invests resources where it sees a future. The Church forms clergy for the generations that have not yet arrived. When 12 young men are ordained according to the traditional rite in 2026, the message is unavoidable. Someone believes this future exists. Someone believes these priests will be needed. Someone believes there will still be faithful requesting the ancient Mass decades from now. Let's pause for a moment. The traditional movement has often been portrayed as fragile, temporary, dependent on special permissions, dependent on aging demographics, dependent on nostalgia. Yet reality continues contradicting that narrative. Traditional communities are increasingly young. Many traditional parishes are filled with families carrying infants and pushing strollers. Many seminarians entering traditional institutes have never known a world before the internet. Many converts discover Catholicism through traditional liturgy rather than despite it. This is not the demographic profile of a movement disappearing. It is the demographic profile of a movement reproducing itself. And institutions capable of reproducing themselves rarely vanish. The question, therefore, changes. The question is no longer whether traditional Catholicism will survive. The question is what relationship Rome intends to have with it. That distinction matters, because history shows that suppressing a living movement is far more difficult than suppressing a declining one. A declining movement disappears naturally. A growing movement generates resistance. And growth is exactly what makes the current situation so complicated. Consider the numbers. Every priest represents decades of future ministry. A newly ordained priest may serve for 40 or 50 years. He may baptize thousands, hear tens of thousands of confessions, celebrate thousands of masses, prepare generations of children for First Communion and confirmation. 12 priests, therefore, represent hundreds of years of cumulative ministry. The impact extends far beyond one ceremony. the impact extends into the second half of the 21st century. This is what many Vatican strategists understand very well. The battle over the traditional liturgy is not fundamentally about the past, it is about the future. If it were only about the past, it would already be over. The people most committed to preserving tradition would simply age out of existence. Yet the opposite is happening. New generations continue arriving. The movement renews itself, and each new ordination demonstrates that renewal. But there is another dimension that deserves attention. Archbishop Winsky was not forced into this position. He could have avoided controversy. He could have delegated the ceremony. He could have sought an alternative arrangement. He could have chosen caution. Instead, he stood before hundreds of faithful and carried out the ordinations himself. That decision required judgment, and judgment reveals priorities. It suggests that at least some bishops view the traditional priesthood not as a problem to be managed, but as a reality worth supporting. Perhaps quietly, perhaps cautiously, but support nonetheless. This is why the event resonated so strongly among traditional Catholics, not because it was revolutionary, but because it felt normal. And normality can be more powerful than rebellion. A rebellion attracts attention. Normality changes culture. When traditional ordinations become ordinary events rather than extraordinary exceptions, perceptions begin to shift. The conversation changes. People stop asking whether tradition will survive. They begin asking how large it will become. That transition is already underway. The real story begins here. For years, traditional Catholics often found themselves defending their existence, explaining why they attended the ancient Mass, explaining why they preferred older forms of worship, explaining why they valued liturgical continuity. Now something different is happening. Increasingly, the results are speaking for themselves. The communities continue growing, the vocations continue appearing, the seminaries continue functioning, the families continue arriving. And every year that passes makes the phenomenon harder to dismiss. This creates a challenge for Leo XIV, not necessarily a crisis, but certainly a challenge. Because every pope eventually inherits questions created by his predecessors. Some questions disappear naturally, others become more urgent. The traditional liturgy belongs to the second category. Traditionis Custodes attempted to establish a clear direction. Yet, 5 years later, many of the realities it sought to reduce remain vibrant. What should a pope do when reality refuses to follow policy? History offers several possibilities. Some leaders intensify enforcement. Some leaders modify the policy. Some leaders simply allow events to evolve naturally. Nobody knows which path Leo XIV will choose. What we do know is that time continues moving, and time often favors living realities over administrative theories. This is where Archbishop Athanasius Schneider's observations become relevant. For years, Schneider has argued that traditional Catholics should not be treated as adversaries within the Church. His appeal has consistently emphasized reconciliation rather than confrontation. His argument is straightforward. If Rome can engage in dialogue with non-Catholics, other religions, and separated Christian communities, why should faithful Catholics attached to traditional worship be viewed differently? Many traditional Catholics believe Omaha represents a practical expression of that same principle. Not conflict, not separation, not rebellion. Simply Catholic life continuing according to inherited forms. The symbolism becomes difficult to ignore. An archbishop appointed by Benedict XVI, an institute in full communion with Rome, a cathedral, a public ceremony, 12 new priests, no slogans, no protests, no declarations of resistance, only ordinations. And perhaps that is why the event carries such weight, because it demonstrates that tradition often advances most effectively when it simply continues existing. The Church has survived countless crises over 2,000 years. Empires rose and fell, Kings came and went, policies changed, disciplines evolved, yet certain realities endured. The priesthood endured, the Mass endured, the sacraments endured, the transmission of faith endured. Every generation receives these treasures and passes them forward. The 12 priests ordained on May 28th now become part of that chain. A chain stretching backward through centuries and forward into a future nobody can fully predict. That future remains uncertain. Will Leo XIV modify the restrictions? Will he maintain them? Will he gradually allow broader freedom? Will he leave the matter unresolved? No one yet knows. But one fact remains beyond dispute. On May 28, 2026, 12 men became priests according to the traditional Roman rite. They now celebrate Mass. They now hear confessions. They now preach the gospel. They now administer the sacraments. And every day they continue doing those things, the debate becomes less theoretical. Because reality has a way of asserting itself. The history of the Church teaches that laws matter, authority matters, obedience matters. But it also teaches that genuine spiritual life cannot be reduced to regulations alone. When faithful continue appearing, when vocations continue growing, when priests continue being ordained, those realities eventually demand recognition. Perhaps that is the deepest lesson of Omaha. Not victory, not defeat, not politics, simply continuity. A reminder that tradition survives not because it wins arguments, but because it continues transmitting what it has received. 12 young priests now carry that mission forward, and whether Rome chooses to encourage it, restrict it, or remain silent before it, the mission continues. The future of the traditional Mass may ultimately be written not by documents, but by priests. 12 of them stood up in Omaha on May 28th, and their story is only beginning. What do you think? If you liked the video, comment Amen. God bless you.